first. We're making history. This is Tony Canuli, the marketing director for HBRN Positive Powered Radio and the host of the Slight Edge Zone. And today marks our very first Leadership Factory Google Hangout with Mr. Orrin Woodward. Orrin will be bringing, he's in here today. I see Orrin, and I also see Claude Hamilton up in Nova Scotia, another amazing leader in the networking space. And today we're going to be talking about topics on leadership. We're going to be talking specifically about mentorship and mentoring and just how critical it is to success in anything in life. And Orrin, for those of you that don't know his background, just an amazing gentleman. Started off, has humble beginnings, humble roots, and today has moved up to the number 7th. He's rated number 7th in the world as a leadership guru. And his blogs are in the top 100. He's followed by everybody. He's written several great books, which I know you're going to talk a little bit about, and how you've come about to where you are today, and how mentorship actually has been so important to you. And so with that, I'm just so excited, Orrin, to have you, and thank you, Claude, for joining us today on this first foremost HBR Hangout in a matter of a handful of months. We've got tens of thousands of listeners right now on HBRN Positive Powered Radio with over 40 amazing hosts. And this Leadership Factory Hangout, I can envision over the next several months, 6 to 12 months, having literally hundreds of thousands of watchers. And then, actually after, we're going to have them uploaded on our YouTube channel. When I can see hundreds of thousands, and hopefully eventually, I shouldn't say hopefully, eventually millions of people that will be watching this, bringing the kind of value that I know that this will bring. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Orrin, for you to chat just a little bit about your background, and as well with Claude. And thank you so much for joining us on this amazing first year with HBRN.
Thank you, Tony. I love leadership. I, get started in community building, and I certainly did not set the world on fire, and very early was exposed to my own weaknesses, exposed to being an engineer and really technical, loving math. I wasn't relating too well with the average person, so it took a lot to really admit that I was the problem and I had to change. And so when I started reading books like Magic of Thinking Big, How to Win Friends and Influence People, How to Have Confidence and Power with People, different books like that, it really exposed me to realize that it wasn't the other person's problem, it was my problem. I was constantly talking in what's in it for me, and nobody cares what was in it for me. And so the revelation was that if I wanted a bigger business, I had to change. And I think that's the whole point of leadership, is that anyone can be a leader if you're hungry enough to change. And that's why I'm so excited about our guest speaker today, our guest on the show, this Leadership Factory. I'm so pumped for it because I know it's going to help people grow and change. If you're hungry and listening to this, I don't care how bad you are, I know you can get good. I mean, the gentleman, Claude, that I'm about ready to introduce, he is so hungry. I talk about, if you're going to win in a community building or really in any leadership type of business, you're going to have to be hungry enough to eat nails. If you're willing to eat nails, you can grow and you can become anything you want to become. But so many people want to have it easy. They want to, well, as long as I don't have to change, can I win? I'm like, look, winning and changing go together. If you want to win, you're going to be changing. If you want to lose, you don't have to change. You're doing really good as you are, or at least I was. And so, Claude, I want to ask you a couple questions on the whole concept of mentoring, because I've watched you over triple plus your business in the last several years, and just absolutely exploding right now. I think in all of the different leaders that I mentor, you're certainly one of the top 2 or 3 as far as hunger and willingness to change. And could you share some thoughts on what does the mentoring process mean to you? And when you come in for yourself, first personally, when you sit down with your mentors, what are you looking for, and what is the most important thing a mentor does for you?
Well, congratulations, Tony, on this show. I'm really excited for you, and I can't wait to follow it and be involved. Orrin, I appreciate the introduction. I think one of the most important things that I remember when looking for a mentor is that the passion of the protege determines the impartation of the mentor. And so I want it to be a win-win in this specific situation. My goal, Tony, I don't know if you know this, but my goal was to get mentored by Orrin. That was my goal. I watched Orrin, and I saw him from afar, and then I saw him from up close, and I said, man, I got to get that guy's attention. I need to know what he knows, and so I made it a goal to have his time. And so I said, well, how best can I do that? And I read his book, Launching the Leadership Revolution, which was New York Times bestseller, and in there he talked about hunger. And so I just said, I just need to be the most hungry student, and my passion to be his student will make him passionate about mentoring me. And so I wanted to make sure that I made myself look like his best student. I wanted to earn his time by making it a win-win. When one of the most important things you do as a leader is equip other leaders, and so I wanted him to get results from mentoring me, so that it wasn't just me taking, I was returning something. So I wanted to be hungry and make sure that I was a good use of his time, that he was going to get a return on it, so that it was a win-win. That's one thing Orrin taught me, is that make sure every relationship, it's not just win for me and lose for the other person, it's win-win for both of us. So I wanted to make sure I earned my mentor's time.
Hey, Tony.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Tony, before I wanted to just add one thing. I spoke the last couple months. I was over on the east coast of Canada, and then I was in Ontario, Canada, and Claude had over 1,000+ people at both of those events, and that's not even half of his organization. So when he talks about being a hungry student and wanting to earn time, he did that in spades.
I guess so. Wow. Well, look at what's behind Claude there, or look at the library. There's a saying, success leaves clues, right? And we can see those clues definitely in there. And Claude, your story is amazing, and it reminds me a little bit of mine from many years ago when I first got into the industry. You said you were actually looking for a mentor. You knew Orrin had tremendous value as a mentor, and you could be a great student. But you had to have developed that understanding and knowledge and belief that mentorship was important. And I know when I first started, I was given the book The Magic of Thinking Big. I was given How to Win Friends and Influence People. And as I was being indoctrinated at a very young age, at 18 years old, they said to me, one of the most important things you can have is to listen to people that have gone where you want to go, or are going where you want to go. So they imparted that belief in me, and that belief became significant. You obviously had that belief before you saw Orrin, and you developed that belief. And maybe you could comment on how you understood, how you came to that belief, and how you can encourage people to have that belief as well. I think that's a great belief to adopt.
Well, I was involved in business for a while before I had the chance to meet Orrin, and I had my share of good mentors and bad mentors, and sometimes I had no choice. I had somebody who maybe had they were doing their best, but they maybe had some holes in their game, and I said, well, I can sit here and be a victim of that, and I can blame that my success isn't on blame it on somebody who's not a good mentor. But then I would just stay where I was at. And so I said, man, sometimes I'm going to have to find the best in the person that I have available. And so I kind of got a little bit far along, but I did learn. What I learned is that most of the problems that I had, and Albert Einstein said, the problems we have in life can't be solved at the same level thinking they're created. So I got to the point where I'd created a lot of my own problems, not just once, not just twice, but I could start to identify some patterns, but nowhere near what I could by when I met Orrin. And that's one of the things that I learned, is that Orrin and the mentor was able to diagnose stuff for me that I couldn't necessarily see because he wasn't involved in the situation. So I was like you, I was in the military, and you don't get to pick your mentor. You kind of get stuck with whoever. And then when I got into business, I did realize that if you want to, very early on in my time in business, somebody who was helping me said, be careful who you listen to. You might end up with their lifestyle. And that stuck with me, just like it stuck with you. And I just said, man, the more I get better at finding the right mentor and then being a good student, the further I'm going to go. And I've really hit the mother lode with Orrin. He's you know, he has been amazing. I'm very lucky and very blessed and thankful.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. I've had the opportunity here over the months to spend a fairly significant amount of time with Orrin and understanding, and I've read his books, of course, and I'm just like you, I've listened to the CDs, and I mean, all the materials that he puts out, it's just amazing, because I believe in constant and never-ending improvement, and I've had plenty of mentors, really good mentors over the years, but one of the things I learned early on, and I would love for you to comment on this, Orrin, and early on I did have some great mentors, but there were points where maybe I didn't have access to a personal mentor. And then I ended up with a surrogate mentor. In other words, when I was listening to Jim Rohn, for instance, in my car, he was my mentor in the car. When I would get on a video, I'd watch, it was my video mentor. You know, in other words, I envisioned those people being mentors to me, even if I necessarily was communicating with them, they're taking their message, but I chose the information. I made a conscious decision. And one of the things that I learned from my mentor early on was that, you know, what goes into your mind, you have control over. You really, truly do. You have control over your decisions as well and how you develop your beliefs. So make careful choices of what you read, what you listen to. You know, negative TV. You know, I tell people I watch a lot of TV. I only watch it though. I never turn it on. It sits in the corner. You know, it just sits there. You know, and it looks good, and that's about it, right? And the only time I really use it is when I use it for things that I want to, like, you know, click the computer to, and I want a bigger screen, or, you know, whatever. And usually it's a positive message, the type of the content. So I'm very careful about what I read, what I listen to, what I watch. When I learned that I could have surrogate mentors at the time in the car, you know, when you go to events and you pick people to watch and learn, and then obviously, you know, personal mentors, you know, you can invite into your life. So what would you say about that, Orrin? Because I know you are absolutely, I mean, I don't know anybody in the industry, honestly, better than I believe has an understanding of mentorship like you.
Well, I think first of all, in my situation growing, I had a lot of surrogate mentors. I like that term. You know, the number one mentor for everybody, if you really boil it down, is the scoreboard. The scoreboard tells you how you're doing. If you're in a business and you want to grow your volume, for example, and if you notice your volume's not growing, it's steady state, so to speak, then there's clearly something wrong. Because if you're in business and if you're doing the right things, your volume should be growing. Or let's say you come up with the key criteria. Maybe it's the numbers in the seats. Maybe it's the amount of people plugged into your training system. Maybe it's the amount of people on your subscription or your monthly ordering. Whatever it is, you come up with those criteria, and if those numbers aren't growing, then clearly you're doing something wrong. Now, the beauty of a real life mentor is maybe they have a little more experience that they can kind of give you some clues on why that's leveled off. But whether you have a mentor or not, if the biggest reason people need mentors is this thing we call self-deception. Nobody wants to see the truth in themselves. No, you know, I love the Bible verse that says Paul, where he said, "We suppress the truth in unrighteousness." Now, he was meaning that in a theological sense with God, but I think that principle holds in all mentoring. When we see something that we don't like the scoreboard, is it the natural thing to say, boy, I need to change, I need to grow? Or it's, well, my upline's not helping me. Well, so-and-so is not helping me. Well, it's because of the economy. It's the gas prices. It's the inflation. They'll come up with 1,000 reasons why it's not working besides I need to grow and change. Well, the key for my mentoring is to constantly point the student back to the scoreboard, because the scoreboard never lies. The mentoree may lie, but the scoreboard never lies. The scoreboard is telling you if you're tracking the right numbers and they're not growing, you're doing something wrong. And until you change, your business will not change. And so people who want the truth love me. People who don't want the truth hate me.
Well, I don't know. I don't know too many people that hate you personally, but you know, it's so funny because the truth will set you free. And what you're talking about, at a future date when we do, a future leadership factory, I'm excited to get into. You do a talk on leadership lenses, basically the way you look at life through your eyes. You know, and are you a blamer? Or do you take responsibility? Are you a performer, or are you blaming somebody else why you're not performing? Are you a leader, and saying, I can't do what Orrin does, or I can't do what Claude does, or are you, blaming everything in your life? I mean, so there's different lenses as you talk about, and what you just described is an epidemic, and you've always said that we lack in leadership in the world, and we need more leaders, and that's absolutely true. But we have an epidemic of rationalization, justification, and denial. Okay, and the truth is in seeing the truth and having metrics to measure, and have, like you said, a mentor to help guide you, and to have that scoreboard. With that, you can change and grow, because we've grown up being a nation, unfortunately, of blamers for the most part. 95% are better. And is it any clue that 95% of the people are not really having the quality of life that they could, and 5% do? When you really understand the very premise of leadership, it's based in number one is awareness and taking responsibility. Where am I at today? And it's okay, because we can change from today and move forward. And so that's one of the things I just love. And when I heard that, I was like, you mean I can take the tapes that I was programmed with growing up? You mean I don't have to listen to what my older brother said my life would be like? I could change my outcome? And I could learn that. I could take responsibility. I could read and learn, and I could get better day by day. The name of the show that I have on HBRN, The Slight Edge Zone, simple disciplines, not big, huge quantum leaps, but a little bit every day. That 15 to 20 minutes of a good book, that watching an Orrin Woodward Leadership Factory hangout, that listening to an HBRN radio network, listening to a CD in your car, Drive Time University, that mobile mentor, that surrogate mentor like we have with HBRN, because the vast majority of our listeners listen via the mobile device. So knowing that you can reprogram, knowing that you can change and decide your outcome, decide that I'm going to live today the way I want to live today. When I really got that, it changed my life.
Claude is a great example of someone who has that leadership lens. In the, 4 years plus that I've been mentoring him, I can't tell you, I cannot recall right now. I've been thinking as you were talking, I was trying to remember, have I ever heard Claude give me an excuse? And in the whole time I've known Claude, I've never heard him give me an excuse. He'll say, yep, yeah, we didn't get what we wanted to do. We'll get it next time. And Claude, where did you come up with that? Was that from the military? I mean, Claude's the Canadian version of a Navy SEAL. He's that elite. He's not just in the military. He was the elite of the military. Where did you get that can-do, no excuses attitude, Claude? Because I wish if I could impart one thing to every one of the people that I mentor, it's just like, no excuses. Let's go get it. Let's go get it done.
Yeah, I sometimes I look back at the military experience, and I sometimes shy away from telling people, yeah, I got it there, because a lot of people haven't got this, didn't have that same experience. But I do think that in my time serving, that I did get some attitude, learn how to have a good attitude through adversity. But really, to be honest with you, one of the things for me over this past 5 years working with you is it's hard to give you an excuse, because I watch what you do, and one of the reasons I love you is you outread me. You read more books than I do. You go through more stuff than I do, and I've watched you go through some tough times, and I've watched you still not take excuses when you would have had many. And so, when I would feel really terrible trying to give you an excuse when your struggles have been way bigger than mine, and you still came through. So, and that's probably an important thing for a mentor is, you lose the qualification of leadership when you refuse to mentor with somebody, because if you're a leader, you got other people's lives in your hands and other people who are relying on you. And so you show me who you're being mentored by, and I could probably predict how big a leader you're going to be. And so I get a chance. I do know that a lot of times, my ability to hit a goal has been keeping a good attitude longer than everyone else. But watching Orrin do that has definitely, I would know I would walk away in shame trying to give him an excuse. I would, it would be because I just watched what he's gone through and kept a good attitude for him. when Orrin says in 5 years he hasn't seen me give an excuse, in 5 years I haven't seen Orrin, my mentor, take the opportunity to use the many times he would have had a chance. If he said to me, Claude, I got this and this and this, and I just can't do something or that, then. But he's always set a good example, which I think is important. That's why I like him as a mentor.
Well, in leadership is leading by example, not telling and then saying, okay, you go do this, and I'll do this. That doesn't work, does it, Orrin? We know that. But, I have a question for both of you. I want to start with Orrin, and what you were just sharing, is this solution thinking. Orrin is, I believe, is the leader he is today because he doesn't always immediately. He's wired now over time. Maybe rewired, and maybe he had to rewire thinking, because I think every great leader eventually, thought a certain way and then eventually changed and grew. But he's so wired now to just thinking of the solution. Okay, let's not focus on the problem because we'll bring it closer to us. We don't want the problem. We want a solution. We want solutions to the problem. And my understanding of leadership has always been that your test of leadership is the better you get at solving the problems. As Jim Rohn would say, don't ask for things to be easier. Ask for you to be better. Ask for your abilities, your God-given abilities to be better at actually solving problems. And Orrin, you've become an amazing, significantly huge problem solver. You've had major challenges. Building a network, the success and lifestyle that you have had is phenomenal. But at the same time, you've been through challenge after challenge, and you've gotten stronger through that adversity. I always like to say, in our community building, diamond is a typical, pin rank, right? But really, what is a diamond? A diamond is a precious stone. But how did it become that beautiful, precious, valuable stone? It was a piece of ugly lumped coal that through many years, thousands or hundreds of thousands of years of pressure, in time became a beautiful stone. Well, you went through a lot of pressure, in a lot of adversity, but you kept focused on the solution, kept focused on where you wanted to go, and you moved forward. And so that's thinking of solution thinking. My question for you when it comes to mentorship, now, because there are people going to be watching this, they're going to go, well, that's great, Claude, you picked Orrin Woodward as your mentor. Wow, and you're blessed, and you are blessed. And I am too, because I pick his brain whenever I can, whenever he'll allow me, to do so. And I love that. I love having that relationship. Not everybody has that. What would you suggest? First, I'm going to start with you, Orrin. What would you suggest for those that, we talked a little bit about a surrogate mentor and how you can start to put that in play. But if someone doesn't have a mentor, what would you suggest for them? And the other thing I wanted to just kind of hint on that is that in every community, there's usually multiple people that actually can provide that role as well. So share with people why they need to immediately take action from this leadership hangout today. Find a great mentor, okay, and create a covenant, create an agreement with them to work with them to develop, and why they need to take action right away and how to, and maybe some thoughts on that.
I remember reading Ronald Reagan, a book on Ronald Reagan, and someone was asking him late in his second presidential about what a great man he was, and he said, I'm not a great man, I just hang out with great ideas. And I remember that just hit me so hard because that's how I feel. It's like I don't, really the greatness of an individual is just how often are they swimming around great ideas. And the more you swim around great ideas, then you can recognize the counterfeit. And so to become great at anything, first of all, you've got to be willing to invest the time and recognize as you're climbing the mountain, you're going to take a tumble. You're going to skin your knees. Many times you're going to fall right back down. In fact, I don't even know I have a good student until they get a good gut shot, knocks them flat. Claude was tough because of some training he had in the military. Whether you get it there, whether I got it from wrestling practice. Man, I was wrestling the second in the state every day, and he was pummeling me. He was the weight class above me, and he pummeled me every day in practice. I only wrestled varsity 1 year, and I got twisted in so many pretzels, but I got tough. I can't stand losing. So every day I'm like, you go ahead and kick my butt again, but I'm going to take it out on my competitor when I have the wrestling match. Somewhere in life you got to figure out that inside of you there's a champion, and he's crying to get out. And this culture of cowardice, we're going to break through it, and we're going to bring out the champion again. So I don't wish people easy in life. In fact, I'm not even going to mentor you until I see you take your shot, and when you get knocked down, then I'm going to say, are you going to sit there and stay down? I'm going to say something that's totally politically incorrect, but hear me out. When I get around somebody to determine whether I'm going to mentor them, there's a smell of battle. And you can tell that smell of battle. It's that gun smoke, man. They're out there making things happen. If I smell urine, I don't want to be mentoring them. So if you're going to wet on yourself, you're not going to be a champion. So decide first, you're going to be a champion, that you will get knocked down, but you won't stay down. Then second thing, get around the greatest ideas. Find the best books on the subject. I know when I wrote Resolved, and I'm trying to plug my own book, but I try to capture the 13 principles that I've learned will make a difference in your life if applied on a consistent, slight edge basis, as you said, Tony. And so if you can't mentor with the people, then read their books. Get their thinking. If you think the way champions think and have the courage that the champions have, you will produce the same results. I remember looking at all those guys that had big businesses, and I had a puny business, and I was cowardly, and I was wetting on myself. But I said, someday I'm going to be a champion, and I'm going to find other men and women that want to be champions, and I'm going to teach them what I did, and if they've got the same courage. We have a recipe for success. Just add your courage.
That is an unbelievable message. You know, it starts with that courage and that hunger. And boy, I tell you, Claude, I turn it over to you to follow after that.
You should always end with Orrin, is what I've found. You know.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. Well, you know, the thing is, and what I like what your point is like there's a lot of people who don't get the chance to get around Orrin, and like I said, you know, along the way to get to the point where I was blessed with Orrin, I had a lot of other mentors that I had to perform with first before I got to him. But one thing about Orrin, so yes, I get to mentor with Orrin, but that as soon as I got his time, I didn't shut down everything else. You know, he expects me to be listening to CDs and reading books, and he expects me, like, he's just he comes in and he knows me the best because I'm honest with him, and he tweaks me and stuff. But if I was sitting there saying I'm not going to read books and listen to CDs, and I'm not going to listen, you know, to get on to your Leadership Factory, and if I wasn't going to do anything else to prepare myself, he would cease to want to mentor me. So anybody out there listening to this, they need to understand that they got to get into CDs and books. They got to get on to hangouts like this and listen to the radio station. They need to be hungry for it, because leadership develops daily, not in a day. You know, it develops daily, not in one day. And so it's when the leader stops preparing, he's going to stop winning. And I know Orrin expects me to keep preparing, so I have a ton of surrogate mentors. I have, you know, all the books I read and all the CDs I listen to, and other people that Orrin mentors. I listen to their CDs and read their books, you know, like Chris Brady, because it's my responsibility. So basically, you know, your mentors owe me 5 or 10%. You should be filling it up with all these other sources and doing what Orrin said, swimming in ideas, and then Orrin can take those ideas and tighten them up for me. So, you know, I appreciate you know, the chance to talk to you today. But that's I agree with Orrin.
Oh, that was great. Great message, and you're a great student. And the student is always the teacher is always a great student, and you've proven that is the case, Claude. And amazing. But when you have someone like Orrin mentoring you, it's boy, I tell you, it just doesn't get any better than that. And I say that because I've been around this industry for over 25 years. I've had phenomenal mentors, and they've all been great. They've all added to a lot. But I tell you, Orrin, you've really taken it to another level. And your book, The 13 Resolutions, I know you won't plug it. I know you're very humble, and I really respect that about you. But those that are watching this, that's not a book you need to think about. That's not a book you should, well, I might get it someday. You need to get it now. And not only do you need to get it now, you need to start reading it and applying what's in there, because it will absolutely change your life. And we're busy. We've got a lot of information bombarding us every day. And that is one of those books that you need to take. And speaking of surrogate mentorship, you know, if you go back to Think and Grow Rich, and Napoleon Hill, you know, he spent 20 years researching the most wealthy people in our society. One of the first things he talked about in there was, you know, the number one reason for failure is that people listen to their friends, family, and neighbors. And we kind of touched on this in this interview, but I wanted to kind of move towards the close here. with talking about we've talked about books and CDs and personal and professional development, why it's important. Who you will become will determine everything in life. We know that. We understand that the information is available, and through technology like this one, when we got started years ago, all of us have been around the networking block for a while. We had to fight for that info. We had to sit front line and center. We had to drive for it. We didn't have this. We had maybe get a tape, that you could put in your car, and that was about it. Really, there wasn't much else. Read a book. But now we've got leadership hangouts. We've got radio networks like HBRN, Positive Power Radio, that provides that 24/7. I mean, we got so much. It's like we're spoon feeding it to people. But one of the things we talked about was the law of associations. And, the old saying, you can tell your income by the income of your 5 best friends. And then when I heard that, it's like, I need new friends. I mean, you realize that very quickly, who you're going to associate with. But Napoleon Hill, in that book, the greatest example of surrogate mentorship came about for those, it's kind of controversial, but for those that have not read Think and Grow Rich, they need to. And those that haven't read it in a few years, go back and read it again. But he talked about how he would literally visualize and see himself with the greatest leaders of our time. Even though they may not have been there physically with him, in his mind, he visually imagined it, and his subconscious brain believed it. And he literally had Ben Franklin, for instance, mentoring him, or whoever, Napoleon, for instance, as far as his, leadership abilities on the field as a general, or whatever person he wanted, he was able to take that. I think that's the greatest example I've ever seen of surrogate mentorship. But let's talk just a little bit as we move forward on the law of associations, Orrin. And why don't we close up on that? And I just think that it's so important to realize who you're around, how to evaluate who you're around, and how to make decisions to either limit some time or expand time with those people.
They say if you hang out with dogs, you get fleas. That's the old Southern saying. And I am amazed. Before I plugged in and before I had leadership, I hung out with a whole bunch of really negative, stinking thinking people. And, and my language was bad. My thinking was bad. And I can remember reading Magic of Thinking Big, and it was just like, wow, do people really think like that? Because I wanted to think like that. I mean, I thought, boy, it'd be great if I could think like that, but can you really think like that? And then I actually went to a meeting, and I saw husbands treating their wives with respect. I'm like, you mean you could actually be married and be happy? And, all these, it just was such a culture shock for me, because I was in such a bad place that, the littlest bit of light can make all the difference for someone that's groping around in darkness. And so there's that little bit of light, and then your responsibility as a student is to identify any light in your life and start moving towards the light. By moving towards the light, you're automatically leaving darkness and going more into the light. And the more you grab that light, start opening it up, and more sunshine comes into the room. And then all of a sudden you look back and you're like, what? Why did I ever hang out over there? But you just don't know what you don't know. So it doesn't matter where you're at right now. You could be totally knocked down. You could be losing your house. You could be in all these different situations, financially busted. But you got to start somewhere. You got to get a firm foundation and say, I have some people willing to help. That's why I love the whole community building, networking, home-based business industry, and what Doug Firebaugh is doing, because he's giving access to great information. Some of the greatest leaders are sharing programs, just like yours, Tony, and sharing truth with people. So you've got to start to go towards the light, quit suppressing truth, and start seeking truth. And the more you apply truth in your life, the greater your success will be. And the way to do that is through association, because when you see other men and women applying truth, and it takes courage to apply truth, the easiest thing to do is to believe your own lies, but then you have to suffer the results from that. But when you start dealing with truth, and one of the greatest ways to have courage is you can't be taught courage. It's actually caught, not taught. It's caught because you see other men. You see men like Claude that'll stand up. He has so many courageous leaders on his team because they look at Claude and say, well, look at Claude. He's at the front line in the battle. I will step up and do the same. And so associate with courageous leaders. And as just the same principle, if you hang out with dogs, you get fleas. If you hang out with dreamers, you get a big dream.
Wow. Amen. That's boy, you got me fired up. This is great. And Claude, why don't you just bring some thoughts onto that? And once again, gentlemen, it's an absolute pleasure, and I'm so grateful to have this opportunity to do great service with both of you.
Thanks, John. I'm excited that you asked us. Orrin is, you can see why Orrin, one of the things that I always think of Orrin, I say, man, you should write a book because, which he has, but a book on mentoring millionaires. Like he has he doesn't just mentor, he mentors some of the most successful people that I personally know. And so he mentors at a really high level, but then he also has some people that, are just getting started in business. And then he's got people who aren't even in his business. And so the spines of the weak stiffen in the presence of the bold. That's a saying that we have in my community, our team. The spines of the weak stiffen in the presence of the bold. And so
I like that.
Sometimes I need to be the one that's bold. Sometimes they need to. And that's what the team is all about. But, when people, I want to make it so when people get into association with me, they know that we're stronger as a team than we are apart. And then, and that's one of the things that Orrin's taught me is, as a team, no one can beat us. When we're apart, we can be beat. And so when people feel like some relationship-based accountability and they want to perform because they're part of a team, they'll perform for that over money. They'll perform for that over anything else, is that they want to be part of a team where people stand for their convictions and want to do the right thing and be the right thing. And so I think that's after you get money out of the way and you get a lot of those other things handled, what else makes you get up in the morning? What else makes Orrin do what he does every day and take his time to do that is because, creating a community of winners and not just the community winners that benefit us, but creating a community of winners that can change our country, change our community, which we both know right now, both our countries could do some changing.
Boy, that is absolutely true. But you know the old saying, if you want to change the world, and you want to change, we'll say the country, or you want to change the family or the community, change yourself first, then you can change your family, then you can change the community, then you can change the state, the country, the world, right? And then eventually the solar system. So absolutely. This has just been a phenomenal interview. And, you're talking about the 13 resolutions. You're talking about having a philosophy, set the sail. If you don't set the sail, you're going to end up on the rocks. You're going to end up like a buoy, moving back and forth in the water. And that's one of the reasons, you have these resolutions that you live by. I know that we'll spend more time in the future leadership hangout on those resolutions, and we'll spend some time on it. But this has been a great interview. And Orrin, before we go, maybe you can, do you have any sense of what we may be talking about on the next Google Leadership Factory Hangout?
I think we're going to talk about purpose. I think we'll start with purpose and helping to identify or detect your purpose, because when a man knows, or when a man or woman knows what they're supposed to do, that really just gives them that extra oomph to go get it done. And so I think that's where it all starts, is what are you supposed to do and do it with excellence. So I think we ought to talk about that.
I agree. I'm excited about that, and my tip for everybody this week is go out and get the 13 resolutions, get Orrin's book, go to his blog. He's got phenomenal information in there. I read it every time he puts a post out. It's one of the first things I read before I look at anything negative. I read Orrin Woodward's blog. And just remember something, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. So learn those resolutions and decide which ones will empower you. Decide the ones you want to live. I believe all of them, but decide what and create your own life. This is our first HBRN Leadership Factory Hangout with Leadership Guru Orrin Woodward, special guest Claude Hamilton from Canada. And this is Tony Canuli, HBRN Positive Power Radio Marketing Director and show host of the Slight Edge Zone. Appreciate both of you. Have a great week, and God bless.
Thank you.